Okay, no, I understand that, Drew. So why don't we start the meeting? I guess we really should have covered this one last month, huh? So we'll start at 7, but we'll make 7 o'clock when we're the time to be here, but we'll actually give maybe a 5 minute buffer. That'll kind of help anyone that's running a little bit late. So how's that sound? Good. Okay. Without further ado, then I'd like to get started on our performances tonight, which happen to be Drew and Amanda, and you guys chose perfect seats because you're right up front here. So, who would like to go first?
I will. Hi everyone, my name's Amanda, and I'm addicted to food. Tonight I'll be reading you my thoughts on my addiction. I have an overeating problem that I've now mostly got back under control. And I was not one of those people who was always chubby or always eating, or even a person who remotely struggled with food for most of my life. I was thin, athletic, and relatively fit, even as a young adult. For me, I think my overeating began when I was misdiagnosed as bipolar, and the drugs I was put on made me feel, terrible. I felt left out to dry by therapists and psychiatrists who basically waved me off when I'd tell them how miserable the medication load was making me. A lot of, just try to hang in there. It'll be worth it in the end. This did absolutely nothing to help with the pain I was in from my mental illness and from the side effects of the drugs in the intro. It turns out I have PTSD anxiety, and I'm not bipolar. I'd have a crying breakdown in their office, begging them to do something more to help me, and they'd basically give me a pat on the back, telling me to be patient, and send me on my way. It was like a nicer F you. Because of the drugs I was on, my options to self medicate to try to manage how I was feeling was very limited. I sure as hell wasn't going to take other drugs, street or prescription, that weren't a part of my regimen in case they mixed with the drugs I was on and made things worse. Same thing with drinking alcohol. I couldn't drink the pain away because that would be dangerous. And besides, it would have been irresponsible. What if that resulted in me not being able to work or go to school because I became an alcoholic? Food became my safe drug of choice. I could binge eat and overeat and get the happy, nice feelings from that temporarily pushed away those awful bad feelings, and I wasn't in danger of messing up my medication or making myself a danger or a nuisance the way imbibing other substances would. I could just snuggle up with Ben and Jerry's and everything would be okay. Add to that the fact that one of the side effects of the antipsychotics I was on was an increased appetite. I gained 50 pounds pretty rapidly. It wasn't until I got a proper diagnosis and treatment of PTSD and was taken off of the bad medications I was on that I could even begin to think about trying to tackle my binging addiction. I tried a lot of stuff, but what ultimately worked for me was intensive therapy and using techniques I'd used to help manage my PTSD, to help manage my desire to stuff my face full of bacon from time to time. Sometimes I mess up, but when it comes to food and the fact that you must eat for the rest of your life, there's no going cold turkey. No cold turkey quitting. I learned to not dwell on those mess ups and try to keep sight of my overall progress and health, the big picture. In my experience, not being able to forgive yourself for a transgression tends to result in an even bigger binge and backslide. It's also been my experience that shame and negative feelings are the opposite of useful when it comes to lasting weight loss and health. I had to treat taking care of myself as something I deserved for myself as a person, not as a punishment for being one of those bad, fat people. At least from my point of view, food addiction should be treated as a mental illness and disorder the same way any other addiction would. For some people, losing weight isn't a big deal. But for people who are facing addiction and binging problems, therapy and more in-depth treatment of the reasons behind the addiction are absolutely necessary to increase the likelihood of success.
Wow, that was excellent, Amanda. I mean, you brought up some key points about addiction, and addiction isn't black and white. It's not limited to alcohol and drugs, and it is a mental illness, and it should be treated as such. Thank you so much for sharing. That was very a unique perspective on addiction.
Amanda, I would really like to say that you put a face to this addiction, and that I'll admit that food is not something that's at the forefront of my mind when I hear the word addiction. And I agree, it should be treated as a mental illness.
All right. Well, thank you again, Amanda. If no one else has any input or questions, we can move on to Drew because he's our next uh, performance tonight. All right. It doesn't look like there's any questions, so Drew, whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone. My name is Drew, and I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholic, words that I can't bear to say, and yet that's what I am. I'm addicted to it, and I, it's almost like having a love-hate relationship with it. Sometimes I talk about drinking as if it were a person or a human being, and although I know it's not, it's become such a big part of my life that it may as well be a person. My problem is I can't go anywhere or do anything on a daily basis without having a drink or drinking. And it seems like it always tags along every day, even when I don't want it to, like your little brother nagging you to take him to the playground. It has literally become every part of my life, and I revolve around it. It's really what I know and what I do best. And I don't want to go to rehab, although I know I should. And I don't get help from anyone, even though there's always family and friends that are willing to help me. And the friends that I do have, the few that are left, I try to keep them very close. And every time I drink, it just seems like it tears us apart. And it doesn't work. And no matter how many times I try, I love to drink. And I love alcohol, and it hates me. It abuses me, and it shatters my life, and yet I constantly keep going back to it. I know the effects that it's going to have on my body and on my health. I know that I'll probably end up dying of some type of liver disease. And I try to rationalize it. I say, well, I figure everybody dies someday anyway. And why not die doing the one thing that I love and that makes me feel wonderful? And it's really weird what it does to me in that way. Whenever I drink, whenever I feel booze running through my veins, it's almost like a high feeling. I can't really put it into words, but whenever I see anything with alcohol in it, I kind of get this butterflies feeling in my stomach. My heart jumps and kind of skips a beat, and I feel wonderful and happy. And that's just when I see it or when I think about it. And the liquid itself, it's wonderful. It's almost brilliant, but that's not what really gives me that high feeling. And when I'm drunk, I love feeling the risk that I might do something bad or wrong, or somebody catching me. And those are just a few of many reasons that I don't leave drinking. And I don't really mind hangovers. I don't get bad hangovers, and there's nothing that a good aspirin can't fix. I love waking up in the morning, or the afternoon for that matter, and not remembering what I did the previous night and just being able to forget everything. A lot of times I get drunk just because I want to. I just want to feel really good and feel that wonderful feeling. And sometimes I feel like I'm forced to do it, like I'm obligated to drink. times when I'm sober are awful. They're horrible. My body aches. I have this yearning for alcohol. I feel like alarms are going off in my head telling me that I have to drink. It feels like I've got electricity running through my body and just pains in my stomach. Like it's calling out to me. And it makes me scared to stop. What if I go to rehab and then I get out and I relapse? And then I realize I can't stop. What then? What are my alternatives? I don't have to worry about failing when I drink. I don't have to worry about the consequences. The process of drinking for me is so simple. There's no expectations. All I have to do is just open the bottle and take a drink. And just the thought of losing that, it hurts. It's very scary. That the comfort is just a drink away. And it's been the only thing that's really comforted me in a long, long time. And it feels like maybe that's what it's like to be in love. And, I'm at a point in my life, I think why I'm here today is I think I just need to move on.
Wow, very powerful. Addiction really does become like a member of the family, doesn't it? Almost like they have a place at the table. There's also this real fear of having the willpower to quit, which is at the root of any addiction. So I'm assuming this is sometime before you actually went to rehab, because I know you had mentioned going to rehab before.
I went to rehab a few years ago, and this is really how I remember feeling about going. And when I went before, it didn't work out so well, and I really still feel this way when I think about drinking.
I feel that way about food, but I've learned it's okay to still have strong feelings tied to my addiction. Knowing not to act on those feelings, that's what's important.
Well, thank you both for sharing tonight. It's been awesome. So this has been kind of our first go with performances. So next week, the goal really is we're going to have some group activities, and we're going to move into some improv games, which should be really fun. We should have 2 more monologue performances as well, people that are ready to go. But that looks like that's all the time that we have for right now. So until we meet next time, same place, same time, everyone be safe, and thanks again for everyone for coming.